is the Drive and Dish Podcast.
Oh, a monster jam!
Talking about NBA news, stats, and fantasy. To start it off, it's Tim Tompkins and Kevin Rafuse.
Oh, he just sucked the gravity right out of the building!
Let's go!
What's up, everybody? You're listening to the Drive and Dish Podcast. Today I have with me Ryan Lameyer out of Tucson, Arizona. How's it going, bud?
Hey, how's it going? Long time no talk.
Absolutely. So the Suns, man, that's kind of up your alley.
Oh, yeah. Gotta love the Suns. Love the direction they're heading.
You must be really happy this year.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good turn of events. Well, I went into it not really thinking highly of the team and thinking you're going to take the whole season off of really watching. But things turned around very quickly.
Yeah, why do you think that is? I mean, they didn't really upgrade the lineup very much. You know, they got rid of Beasley, they added Eric Bledsoe, they got rid of Marcin Gortat, you know, they added a couple of rookies. Why do you think it is that all of a sudden the Suns have such a better record this year?
I would relate it. I mean, it's a chemistry thing. I mean, you got a bunch of guys that would be red shirts on other teams and would be on the practice squads and putting in time and not really hanging out with, you know, the stars of another NBA team and kind of like have their own relationships, hanging out. I think it's just something when you make it in the NBA, you've reached your dream, and they're all just it's just clicking now, and they're finally getting minutes to play and getting time to shine and working to try to make money. I mean, if somebody was going to give you an opportunity to make $4 million a year by how well you perform, you're probably going to work really hard to do it.
Sure, but I mean, you could relate that back to the 76ers. I mean, all those kids are getting paid too, but they aren't winning games.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that team, most of those guys were high draft picks, and they get their money up front. I mean, when you got these other guys that are journeymen, even like, I guess, I think it's $3 or $4 million Green's making this year, but he never really got a chance. I mean, if you're sitting on the Pacers roster, everyone's scoring, and you jack up 2 or 3 bad shots in a row, you're going to get pulled from the game, and they're going to put somebody else to do the job. But the Suns just didn't have anybody else to do the job, and I think that gave built some confidence for these guys. I mean, it's like Plumlee. What are you supposed to do behind Hibbert? You're just not going to get the playing time or any kind of confidence to play. And again, speaking of recent events, I mean, look at Alex Len last night. I mean, guy hasn't really got any minutes all season, hasn't been in any crunch time moments in the final minutes. And he came up big with some defensive stops and a couple offensive rebounds that the team desperately has needed. And granted, I don't think you're going to get that from him night in and night out, but, you know, he showed up when it needed.
Yeah, that putback that he had off that Eric Bledsoe miss was probably the biggest moment in his NBA career thus far.
Yeah, I would completely agree with that statement. I feel like it's just, you know, I don't want to compare the Suns team to other Suns teams of the past, but I would say it's the same thing. You know, everyone talks about Steve Nash making millionaires in the NBA and turning people that were scraps on another team or just disregarded it for having any more of a career, you know, making these guys able to make shots and get paid. And that's kind of what Dragic has done. And it, in very similar terms, is he's taken these guys that never really got a chance anywhere else, and as long as they can make their shots, they're getting playing time and seeing success.
So I've noticed that Miles Plumlee, he had a bit of a midseason slump, and then since Eric Bledsoe came back, his play has definitely been back up there. He's averaging more points, he's averaging more rebounds. Why do you think it is that Plumlee plays so much better with Eric Bledsoe as opposed to Goran Dragic?
I really don't think it has, a thing of just being with Dragic. Granted, with both in the backcourt with Bledsoe and Dragic, it's going to give more spacing, and Plumlee can get more offensive rebounds and putbacks. And I mean, that's what he was doing earlier in the season with his scoring. It really wasn't pick and rolls. It was mainly garbage buckets, kind of like what P.J. Tucker does with his offensive rebounds and layups. And regarding Plumlee, though, I feel a lot of it has to do with fatigue. You got a guy that, you know, when he was at the Pacers, practicing every day and having to guard Hibbert in practices and things like that. But the guy was playing, I don't know exactly, but I would say probably 32, 35 minutes a game. And over a whole season, even though you could be conditioned, you're just going to get fatigued. And I think that's what happened to him mid-season is his body started breaking down, and requesting rest, even though he needed to play. I think him getting hurt a little bit more and, missing a couple games were good. And then I think also with Bledsoe coming back and opening the floor, it's allowing him to be more successful and giving him more confidence out there.
Speaking of Bledsoe, so he just came back from that knee injury. He's been out for, 7 weeks now. What have you thought about him since his return? How's he looking to you?
I feel like he's the same player as before he left. I mean, granted, his jump shots got a couple more games going to find his flow, but like the other night he was on a fast break and off of, I believe it was a steal, and just exploded for almost an and one with a dunk. I mean, he missed it. Those were the moves that you would have saw before his knee injury. And most players, I mean, you see most of these guys come back and, like Rondo or anybody else that has had knee issues and really struggle. I mean, it takes them weeks to get back on there, but he really looks like he hasn't missed a step other than, not having his shot as crisp as it was before the injury.
I agree. He does look really good coming back. I think when you looked at Russell Westbrook looked like when he first came back, there's just the jump shot seems to be the last thing to come.
Yeah, and I just feel, his legs are just there. And I have to say it's got to be the Suns training staff. There's just no ifs, ands, and buts about it. I mean, these guys have rehabilitated so many players from so many catastrophic injuries or even mild injuries and made them new players. But for some reason on other teams, these guys take weeks to come back and play at a high level.
As of the time that we record this interview, the Suns are about 2 games back out of the 8th seed in the West. What do you think that the Suns need to do moving forward to clinch that 8th spot?
I mean, I feel that they're going to keep playing the way they do. I mean, they're not going to blow anybody off the court. I mean, they just play with hustle and heart, and they're going to grind out these games. I mean, they're just, there's been a couple games this season where they've blown out their opponents, but for the most part, they're a handful of baskets between a win and a loss. And I just feel with the direction they're going with crunch time, I think having Bledsoe back where Dragic doesn't have to feel like he has to do it all himself or Green has to do it all himself, I think they're in a good place. I mean, looking at their schedule, they're on the road playing a bunch of East teams right now. I mean, the Toronto game on Sunday is going to be really, really tough. But then after that, I think they can take Brooklyn at home. I mean, Brooklyn's playing good, but I think they can go on an offensive spree and take care of business there. And then they get to come home and play a Detroit team that really shouldn't even be an NBA team right now. And
they're also playing the Magic at home.
Yeah, the Magic, and I mean, they got a bunch of great young talent, but again, the Magic aren't playing well either. And right there, if they can go on a little 5-game win streak, I mean, we're talking they're back already in the playoffs again, and I think that's the direction they need to go. And I think they'll be okay. And then the last week of the season is going to be a tough stretch. I think they play a lot of seeded teams or teams that will be in the playoffs. But hopefully the seeds have been set at that point, and maybe some of these teams will be resting their players, and they can get some wins down the stretch by the Oklahoma City Thunder and the Clippers resting their players because they've already have their seed locked.
Sure, and a lot of this also depends on where Dallas plays. I know Dallas has a really tough schedule coming up. Well, we have about 30 seconds left for this, so real quickly, what is the best game that you have seen so far this season by the Suns, and why?
I would go with the best win was probably Oklahoma City. I think the best they played was probably against the Clippers earlier in the season. I mean, they were just lights out, making every single shot. I would say the Oklahoma City game, for them to be down by 18, with, I want to say, 3 minutes left in the third quarter and come back as strong as they did. Usually most teams, when they have to go on that long scoring spree and go on a run, they're pretty much gassed out, and with 6 minutes left in the fourth, they just don't have any more energy and still lose the game. But they were able to keep that energy and pull out the win, and I think that was kind of the turning point. I know they've went on the road and had a little struggle there, but again, all those games were close. It wasn't like they were getting blown out, and as long as they put themselves in a place to win, I think for the most part they're going to get those wins.
Absolutely, and that was a really fun game. I believe that they were down by 16 with 3 minutes left in the third when Gerald Green just exploded for, I don't know, what he hit, 8 threes in a row or something stupid like that. 25 points.
Yeah, I think he went 6 for 6 in the third quarter for threes. And again, I mean, that was the most energy I've seen. I mean, I was at the game, and I mean, the energy in the building is the most I've seen in 3 or 4 years. It was great to see that people were on their feet and actually participating in the game. I'd say, with getting the players up for the game instead of just sounding like crickets in the arena, which, for the most part, for the last couple of years, that's what it's been like at the Suns games.
Yeah, I saw it on TV. I was looking for you, but I didn't see it. But man, that just looked like so much fun. Definitely the best Suns game I've seen in at least 2 seasons, but it might have been the best Suns game I've ever seen.
Yeah, I would definitely put it up there with. They had some great playoff battles over the years, and I mean, it's hard to compare a regular season game to the playoffs. But for this group of players, I definitely couldn't be more happy with being at that game. I mean, it was definitely a special moment.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Ryan. I think that we should go and catch up when it gets a little bit closer to playoffs.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, I'll be happy to be on the show.
That's all. That's all.
That's all, folks.
Thank you for listening to the Drive and Dish NBA podcast. Don't forget to subscribe on iTunes by searching Drive and Dish. On Twitter, use the hashtag DADPod. You can find Kevin at Refuse to Lose, Justin at Jay Kuzart, and Tim at Tim from Tucson. We would like to thank Cox Media Group for allowing us to use their studio here in Jacksonville. We are in no way affiliated with the NBA, and any sound clips you heard on today's episode are copyright of their respective copyright owners. Go get them. We'll talk to you later. Until next time. Toodaloo.
Yeah!